why? And I want someone that can tell me, come on.
Janis Joplin was simply another Texas singer in 1967. Her name was unknown outside of San Francisco. Everything changed when 14 Seconds performed at the Monterey Pop Festival. Mama Cass's mouth fell open as well. A girl from a rural village became rock's first female superstar in that one fleeting moment. However, a countdown was also initiated in those same 14 seconds. She will die at the age of 27 3 years later. What took place during those moments? How come it sealed her doom? You may be surprised by the response. On January 19, 1943, Janis Joplin was born in Port Arthur, Texas. Oil refineries and rigid views on proper living were common in her rough conservative area. Seth, her father, was an engineer. In a town where the majority of people depended on the oil business to provide for their families, that was a solid, consistent job. Dorothy, her mother, was employed at a nearby college. The Joplin family appeared to be the epitome of a decent middle-class existence. Janis, however, didn't. She felt uncomfortable even as a young child in a town where girls were supposed to be quiet, well-mannered, and submissive. For such a life, she had too many questions and too much imagination. Janis began to stand out in ways that unnerved folks in Port Arthur as she entered junior high in the late 1950s. Once hailed as a bright, artistic child, the girl went on to speak out against the town's strict regulations for women and prejudice. She was a target because of that. She started to be perceived as a misfit by her classmates and neighbors. The shift struck hard and quickly. Once popular, Janis started to feel alienated. However, that suffering helped her develop into the sincere, passionate artist that the world would come to know. Thomas Jefferson High School was far worse. She wasn't merely teased by her classmates. They destroyed her. They referred to her as a creep, black lover, pig, and freak. They made fun of her weight, her acne scars, and, above all, her refusal to fit in. Janis dared to speak out against racism and make friends with black classmates. That was viewed as treachery in a place like Port Arthur. It was vicious bullying. Although it left her with lifelong wounds, it also strengthened her. She accepted the pain and used it as motivation for her disobedience. She openly wore her outsider label and allowed it to influence the audacious, unpolished voice that would soon rock the music industry. Janis discovered a tiny circle of people who transformed her life amidst all of that cruelty. She first encountered Jack Kerouac's writings through these beatnik children. She could relate to his tales of liberation and defiance. She went from Port Arthur to New Orleans with them, stopping at roadhouses along the way. The blues, jazz, and folk music she heard there captured her heart. She learned from the beatniks that the world was wider than her hometown's narrow-mindedness. She became inseparable from that song and established the groundwork for everything that she would become. Despite her inability to read music, Janis possessed a talent that astounded everyone who heard it. She has the ability to sing like the blues greats. Big Mama Thornton, Bessie Smith, and Odetta. She didn't simply imitate them. She sensed their suffering, strength, and timing. Their music became a part of her. No one could imitate the power and rawness of her singing, which she taught herself. She had a stormy voice, honest, wild, and unforgettable. She became a star once her voice broke through the barriers of a world dominated by men. Janis left Texas in 1963. Along with her buddy Chet Helms, she hitched a ride to San Francisco for about 50 hours. It was not just a journey, it was a way out. Janis discovered that San Francisco was a city full of people who also didn't fit the stereotype. She performed in coffee shops and pubs. She was dressed in jeans, went barefoot, and sang from the bottom of her heart. She wasn't attempting to be refined or attractive. People noticed that she wanted to be authentic. She was even described as someone who dares to be different in a piece published by the Daily Texan. However, freedom also came with risks. Janis became heavily involved in drug and alcohol use in San Francisco. She gained notoriety for her use of Southern Comfort whiskey, heroin, and amphetamines. Her image was shaped by that bottle. The drugs and drinking weren't merely recreational. Oh no. She carried pain from years of feeling unwelcome, but they helped her deal with it. However, they also began to lead her in a sinister direction. She met Jay Whitaker at a pool hall at this period. The two grew close, and Janis took up residence with her Janis had never been in a relationship with a woman before. During the 1960s, that was dangerous. However, Janis didn't give a damn about the norm. However, the romance ended. It was difficult for anyone to be close to Janis for very long because of her crazy lifestyle. Janis was in poor health by 1965. She weighed only 88 pounds when she returned home to Texas. Her parents intervened to help after being shocked. Janis made an effort to tidy up. For a time, she gave up booze and narcotics. She had a makeover, put her hair in a beehive, and started studying anthropology at Lamar University. She even became engaged to IBM employee Peter DeBlanc. For a short while, it appeared as though Janis may get married after they arranged a wedding. However, Peter broke her heart by calling off the engagement. After Janis' effort at leading a typical life failed, she was drawn back by the allure of music and independence. Janis Joplin was in Austin, Texas in May 1966. She was thinking of joining Roky Erickson's Elevators on the 13th level and singing folk tunes, when her longtime buddy Chet Helms, who had made a name for himself in San Francisco's music scene, decided his band needed a vocalist who could fit in with the city's wild new rock sound. Everything changed. In order to locate Janis and transport her to San Francisco, he dispatched Travis Rivers. The 4th of June 1966 was her arrival date. 6 days later, she performed at the Avalon Ballroom for the first time with Big Brother and the Holding Company. Dave Getz played drums, Peter Albin played bass, and James Gurley and Sam Andrew played guitars in the band that evening. It wasn't a smooth start. The band and Janis needed time to adjust to one another. Janis had to practice singing with the loud electric sound for over a year. She described San Francisco as unusual in letters home. She moved, but her parents were unaware of it. After that first show, she wrote, Big Brother was stranded in Chicago that same year. They were not paid by a promotion. On September 12, 1966, they signed with Mainstream Records out of desperation. It was a horrible bargain. They were required to work for union-scale wages and received no advance compensation. With everything derived from future royalties, they recorded their debut album in Los Angeles between December 12 and 14. The meetings were hurried. It was a clear sound, too tidy for a band with a reputation for loud, crazy live performances. Janis's double-tracked vocals were still audible. On August 23, 1967, the album was released. It failed to reach the summit. It got to number 60. However, everything changed with their performance at the Monterey Pop Festival. After realizing the magic, Columbia Records purchased their contract. Janis did more than simply sing. The stage was attacked by her. She stomped. She trembled. In front of the guitarists, she knelt. She spoke in tremendous roars and quiet murmurs. Observing her was like having your mind rewired, according to both critics and fans. Janis famously remarked, I make love to 25,000 different people on stage. I then head home by myself. She didn't mind smudging her makeup or perspiring. For female rock stars, that stage presence changed the rules. Janis disregarded the social mores of the day in her personal life. There were men and women with whom she had relationships. Peggy Caserta was involved in one of the most significant. Calling out to one another through open windows, they met in an odd way. They had a passionate friendship. Caserta claimed that she was transformed after seeing Janis perform on Big Brother. They had a close bond. In addition to supporting one another, they fought heroin addiction together. Afterwards, Caserta wrote a book about it, although some people who know Janis claimed it was incomplete. Not that Janis was blind to the world's perception of her. She was aware that people were horrified by her reckless drinking, unrestrained sexuality, and unpolished performances. She also made use of that. She thought that made her more relatable to her admirers. Perhaps my listeners would appreciate my music more if they believed that I'm ruining myself, she remarked. Janis was a firm believer in living her life as she saw fit. Although she was afraid of failing in front of everyone, she also thought that staying true to herself was already a win in and of itself. Then, on June 17, 1967, the Monterey Pop Festival took place. More than 50,000 individuals attended. Performers included Jimi Hendrix and The Who. But the star of the evening was Janis, who is only 24 and seldom known outside of San Francisco. She sang so powerfully that the audience fell hushed before erupting in cheers. It felt like the earth had split open, according to one critic. Janis moved from unknown to sensation that day. With the headline, "Dreams Come True in Monterey," the San Francisco Examiner featured her. "Ball and Chain," one of her songs, became a legend. Her voice became a scream instead of a whisper. She walked onto the stage with a stomp. During the concert, even Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas was observed mouthing, "Wow." In defiance of its own rules, the festival invited Big Brother to perform again the next day. No one else received that distinction. Giants from the music industry filled the tent for the second set. They were signed to Columbia Records. The future of Janis was set. People saw what she had, including Bob Dylan's manager Albert Grossman and Columbia Records' Clive Davis. Her performance was described by Davis as life-changing. He immediately signed her. Grossman was her manager in no time. Fans previously expressed their feelings to the music industry. Nobody could ignore Janis's might. She was dubbed the festival's true queen by the media. Her image, daring, barefoot, wild-haired, and braless, was shown on TV and in newspapers all over the world. She broke into a male-dominated scene and became America's first major female rock star. Janis became well-known in a matter of weeks. She altered perceptions of what a woman could be on stage as well as dress and music. People didn't think a white woman could sing the blues well until Janis. She disproved them. The blues great's anguish and soul were conveyed in her voice. No one had ever seen a white girl sing the blues like that, according to a festival producer. Her unadulterated strength broke down barriers of gender and ethnicity. Chrissy Hynde and Stevie Nicks, two future celebrities, would later claim that Janis showed them what was possible. When Big Brother and the holding company published Cheap Thrills on August 12, 1968, Janis Joplin's tale took a crazy turn. This album wasn't your typical one. In its 8th week on October 12, 1968, it peaked at #1 on the Billboard Top LP chart, making it a sensation. From the top spot, it even tapped on the doors while it waited for the sun. The fact that it maintained that place for 8 non-consecutive weeks was even more amazing. Only Ball and Chain was actually recorded live at the Fillmore East on March 8, 1968, despite the raw sound leading many people to believe it was a live album. The remaining songs were recorded in a studio to resemble an intense performance. This album's popularity lasted longer than a single season out. In 2007, it was admitted to the Grammy Hall of Fame, and it was named one of the 500 best albums of all time by Rolling Stone. Cheap Thrills sold about 1 million copies by the end of 1968. That was significant for any band at the time, much less a San Francisco-based psychedelic rock trio. After Piece of My Heart became an anthem, Janis Joplin became a formidable presence. No one could match the way her voice tore into a song. That same power was displayed in other songs, such as Ball and Chain and Summertime. The cover of the record, featuring R. The comic art of Crumb, leaped from the shelves. Cheap Thrills became the best-selling album of 1968. It even sold more copies in the U.S. than the Beatles for a while. Joplin had grown to that size, but there was a cost to all that celebrity. As Joplin became the center of attention, the band began to fall apart. The other Big Brother contestants felt forced into the background. Joplin's manager, Albert Grossman, and Columbia Records increased the pressure on her to become a solo performer. Joplin herself desired to experiment with new keyboards, horns, noises, and a style that leaned more toward R&B and soul. However, Big Brother wanted to maintain their unadulterated jam band style. It was impossible to keep things together because of creative conflicts, celebrity, and severe drug use. The separation was inevitable by the end of 1968. Despite being at the top of the world, Joplin was also losing her mind. More drinking, more heroin, and more mayhem had come with fame. She took a gulp of Southern comfort on stage. She heavily drank heroin off stage in an attempt to block off pressure, loneliness, and anxiety. She exuded bravery and fearlessness in public. She had intense concerns about her appearance and what many believed to be manic depression on the inside. The situation was exacerbated by the rock scene. Drugs are all around, people are partying, and nobody is paying much attention to addiction. Beneath the untamed exterior was a lady who took criticism personally and frequently felt isolated in the throng. Joplin had her breakthrough in December 1968. Despite the enormous success they had recently experienced together, she quit Big Brother. Even though she was aware of the risk, the desire to invent something new,
was stronger.
she founded the Cosmic Blues Band by January 1969. Her new band, I Got Demo Cosmic Blues Again Mama, released their debut album on September 11, 1969, and featured keyboards, horns, and a sound influenced by R&B and soul. It quickly turned to gold. Critics were unsure on how to interpret it. Her unadulterated vitality was adored by some. Others missed the atmosphere of Big Brother. The album was hurriedly released by the record label, wishing to profit on inexpensive thrills. Despite its shortcomings, Joplin's voice was audible on every song. There were more highs and lows that year, show. After a torturous 10-hour wait, Joplin entered the stage at Woodstock on August 17, 1969. She put all of her heart into the music, whether she was intoxicated, high, or both. Both the magic and the mess were visible to the audience. Her condition that night probably prevented her set from appearing in the original Woodstock movie, but subsequent editions included it, showcasing the unadulterated strength that made her iconic. Her personal life continued to be as crazy as her work. Joplin broke every rule. She had a wide range of partners, including men, women, and well-known figures like Christopherson and Jim Morrison. She made jokes about her travels, but her true motivation was a need to be loved and wanted. She was a shock to conservative America. In certain regions, her music was prohibited, and she was even arrested for using foul language while performing. She didn't care, though. Despite the pain, she lived her life as she saw fit. However, the negative aspects of that way of life were beginning to surface by 1969. She became addicted to heroin. She was spending roughly $200 a day, which is thousands of dollars in today's currency. Peggy Caserta, her buddy, joined that perilous world, both taking part in the destruction and the highs. Many questioned the veracity of Caserta's later book, which attempted to recount the tale. Ultimately, the medications prevailed. Joplin passed away at the age of 27 from an overdose on October 4, 1970. Despite her survival, Caserta suffered from years of addiction. Joplin's letters home told a different story. Despite her ups and downs, from Port Arthur, Texas, she wrote to her family. Filled with regret, uncertainty, and want, she acknowledged that she was unsure of her decisions and felt lost in the music industry. The cruelty and bullying she experienced as a child never left her. She had the stage thanks to fame, but not the tranquility she desired. Janis Joplin had a quick life, a crazy love life, and a tragic and unvarnished legacy. Much like her music, she was attracted into a life of turmoil and freedom as soon as she landed in San Francisco in 1966. She met Peggy Caserta there, the woman who would permanently alter her life. The connection between Janis and Peggy was tense and intense. They experienced everything together, even the highs and lows of love and heroin. Janis was honest about it. She didn't care at a time when acknowledging that you loved both men and women could destroy you. She was viewed as a rebel by the world. For Peggy, Janis was an uncontrollable storm. It seemed as though Janis was reaching for something that she knew would always elude her as she called out to Peggy through the window of her Haight-Ashbury apartment. Janis wanted to show the world that she was important, but she also wanted to feel wanted. Back home in Port Arthur, Texas, she had been made fun of. They voted her the college's ugliest man and labeled her ugly. She pursued guys because she was always in pain. Well-known males like Chris Christopherson, Jonah Math, Jim Morrison, and possibly even Jimi Hendrix. She had more in mind than pleasure. She was attempting to silence the voice in her head that told her she wasn't good enough. She had a stage because to the free-spirited love of the 1960s. However, Jenny still felt hollow after the festivities finished and the music ceased. She once remarked that perhaps her music was more popular because people believed she was killing herself. She was, in many respects. She looked for something tangible. She was engaged 3 times. The final one went to 21-year-old student and cocaine dealer Seth Morgan. In the summer of 1970, he entered her life. Janis took him seriously. Seth didn't really support her, even when she made the engagement announcement. Like so many others, he wandered in and out. Just before Janis passed away, their threesome plot with Peggy Caserta fell apart. They both left her feeling abandoned. In her last days, that loneliness weighed heavily. She never found the person she was looking for to stay. Not all romantic relationships ended poorly. She and Chris Christopherson remained pals. He gave her Bobby McGee and Me. After she passed away, that song became her biggest hit. It became the #1 song. Before her, only Otis Redding had done that. The lyrics of the song were a perfect fit for her. Loss, longing, and freedom were all present, and it demonstrated how, even after love departed, Janis could preserve the best of what she shared with someone. To this day, the song serves as a reminder of what she left behind. Her last few months were a combination of heartache and genius. She established the Full Tilt Boogie Band in the spring of 1970. At last, she found a band that allowed her to express herself musically. They laid down the tracks that would eventually become Pearl at Sunset Sound in Hollywood. They put forth a lot of effort. They recorded Cry Baby, Move Over, and Me and Bobby McGee between July and October. After she left, that album became the #1 album. It achieved quadruple platinum status. Janis never witnessed its triumph. On August 24, she booked into the landmark Motor Hotel, 1970, 105th room. That was the conclusion of her story. Despite hosting parties and jamming with friends, she continued to feel lonely. She would be spotted strolling barefoot with her bottle of Southern Comfort in hand by hotel staff. Meanwhile, the music continued to flow from her. She recorded Mercedes-Benz just 3 days prior to her passing. Her voice, unadulterated and genuine, in a single take without any instruments. Janis was that person. No hiding, no filter. In that song, she made fun of materialism, but you could hear the pain below the joke. Paul Rothschild, her producer, encouraged her to work with Pearl to create something unique. His collaborations with The Doors were well known. Janis was forced to do take after take by him. The album did exactly what he wanted it to. Even though it was polished, Janis's identity remained maintained. Even now, songs like Cry Baby and Bobby McGee and I still have a strong impact. It was bittersweet, but Rothschild described it as the most fulfilling work of his career. In a tragic way, the album was a victory. Plans, heartache, and tragic decisions characterized Janis Joplin's final days. She had planned what she believed to be a private getaway with 2 of her closest confidants on Friday, October 6, 1970. She organized a menage a trois with her fiancé, Seth Morgan, and her girlfriend, Peggy Caserta. The historic Motor Hotel in Los Angeles, where she was lodging while recording her Pearl album, was the intended location of the rendezvous. Neither of them appeared. At the last minute, Caserta made the decision that she didn't want to interact with Morgan, and Morgan made other preparations, assuming Caserta would be present. Janis was not informed. She waited by herself, bewildered, unaware that both had withdrawn. The loneliness struck hard that night. At a time when she needed connection, the individuals she relied on the most abandoned her. October 3, 1970, the following day, Janis was still in shock from the emotional shock. She went to get heroin from her dealer. She revealed what had transpired during that conversation. She informed him that she had been rescued by both of her pals. That admission revealed the depth of the hurt. And she felt deserted. It was not merely a drug transaction. It was an attempt to numb the agony, a sad, desperate one. That day, the heroin she purchased was exceptionally pure. The same group would murder a number of other people that weekend in Los Angeles. Heartbroken and defenseless, Janis had no idea that the injection she received would be far more potent than she was accustomed to. The body of Janis was discovered on the evening of October 4, 1970, on the floor of her room at the historic Motor Hotel, room 105. Without showing any signs of resistance, she had fallen between her bed and the bedside table. The combination of the extremely pure heroin and the alcohol in her system was lethal. After the injection, she most likely passed quite soon, potentially hitting her skull as she fell. When she did not appear for a recording session, her body was found by her road manager, John Cook. She was supposed to record Buried Alive in the blues vocals that day, headed to the hotel when she didn't show up. She had parked her Porsche outside. He discovered her lifeless body inside. The music industry was rocked by the shocking discovery. Janis had been energized and eager to finish her album just hours early. Janis passed away at the age of just 27. Her name was added to the list of renowned musicians who passed away at the same age, which would later be known as the 27 Club. It included Jimi Hendrix, who died 16 days before Janis. The list would also include Brian Jones, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, and Jim Morrison. Janis had only working off her most popular record when she passed away. It was an eerie conclusion that contributed to the tales around the perilous edge of rock and roll. 3 months after her death in January 1971, Pearl was set free. It turned out to be her best-selling record. For 9 weeks, it held the top spot on the Billboard 200. Additionally, the album reached the top of the charts in the Netherlands, Canada, and Australia. It sold more than 4 million copies in the U.S. alone. The vibrant and lively cover photo of Janis became a classic. Buried amid the blues, one tune remained as an instrumental, a quiet homage to the voice that was never able to complete it. Her sole #1 single was the version of Me and Bobby McGee. In March 1971, it peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Days before she passed away, the song was recorded. It depicted her weakness as much as her strength, and its tale of loss and separation reflected her own. After she went away, co-author Chris Christopherson heard her version and was heartbroken. As requested in her will, Janis's ashes were dispersed around the Marin County beach. They were released over the Pacific Ocean and Stinson Beach by a tiny plane. She set aside $2,500 for a farewell celebration. Friends got together at the Lions Share Club on October 26, 1970. There was music, limitless cocktails, and brownies laced with hash. Pearl has received the invitations. It was the ideal send-off for someone who lived freely and independently. Janis was admitted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. She was honored with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2005. These accolades reaffirmed for fans what they already knew. Janis Joplin's energy, voice, and passion would always be there. As a lesson of the strength and cost of burning too brightly, her legend endures.